It's Whitney, and welcome back to the EVG Uncensored channel, where I share my thoughts, feelings, and opinions on things not necessarily related to veganism. And this video is likely going to be a short one because it's almost 4:30 in the morning. It's technically Monday morning, but to me it still feels like Sunday because I haven't gotten to bed yet. And I'm trying to stay on track for recording and posting videos on Sunday. I guess this is me really stretching that. And I apologize. Part of the reason why I didn't end up recording a video yesterday as planned on the official Sunday was because I ended up recording a video for one of my other channels, the channel called What a Vegan Eats, that was really emotional. I was very raw and vulnerable and open in that about some feelings that I was having. And that's not traditionally the type of content that I share on that channel. It's typically what I talk about more here, but it was a topic I really wanted to address on that channel. And it felt good to open up. But after I recorded it, I just felt so emotionally raw that it's taken me hours and hours to get back on track. And I also had a ton of stuff to do. I just finished editing a video and went out to dinner and did a whole bunch of other things. So I apologize. I'm trying to stay on schedule with everything that I'm doing. And I've taken on a lot of different projects. So I appreciate your patience and understanding with when these videos come out. Well, in that video, I talked a lot about my feelings around judgment, which is something I've addressed many times in the uncensored videos. And it's interesting to me just how much I continue to feel sensitive to that. As I was reflecting on how I was feeling today after recording that video and the day before, which kind of inspired that video, I was thinking, why am I so sensitive? Why does it bother me so much when people leave negative and or judgmental comments on YouTube especially, or any form of social media? Why does that get to me? Why can't I be this person that just has on this armor and has that thick skin and lets it roll off? I don't know, and I don't know if that's necessarily achievable, and I don't know if I would necessarily want to be at that place where I felt that able to really trying to figure out what words I want to use here. I can see I'm getting tired. Trying to reflect it. I think that there's a certain level that you can get to, right, where you have a thick skin and things bother you less and less or differently or in smaller amounts. But I don't know if it entirely goes away. And I actually felt quite comforted recently. I started following this popular YouTube creator named Zoella. I feel so out of the loop that I've never watched her videos before, but she's amazing. And I just love her style. She really inspires me to be more of myself and continue doing what I do on YouTube. And she has this video that she shared once of her breaking down over how challenging YouTube can be and how she doesn't feel like she's doing well and she feels like a failure and all these different things. I just so related. And that was kind of that similar moment that I had yesterday on the What a Vegan Eats channel of just like, oh my God, I just don't feel like I can do anything right. And I feel like no matter what I do, someone's going to hate on it. And it's just like, it's so challenging. And I guess that's just part of what it is to be on YouTube or online in general, is that you're exposed to so many people. And as somebody pointed out in a comment on that video I recorded, you know, there are people watching around the world and they have so many different backgrounds and so many different experiences. And in a way, it's really amazing that we can connect with so many people. And I guess the aim is not necessarily not to be so sensitive to it, but to be grateful for the ability to connect with so many people. Because it's not something that we had before. On my main Eco Vegan Gal channel, a few days ago, I posted a video with my 96-year-old grandfather, and we were talking about how much things have changed over time. And for him, TV didn't even exist when he was a little boy. I'm afraid to say this. When was radio invented? I think he even said that, I'm looking it up right now. Okay. My grandfather was born in 1919, and radio started to be developed, according to the internet, in 1895. But it looks like no one's giving me a quick answer. I just did not want to come across ignorant. I think it was sometime in the 1920s, they're saying here. Anyways, I'm not going to spend the time looking this up. My point being is my grandfather was around before most technology existed, and he's still alive. And it's like unbelievable how much things have changed. Cars and radio and television, and not to mention all of these forms of social media. For him, he probably was barely even using the telephone back then. Even for me, telephones have changed so much. I mean, you can relate to this too, I'm sure. Just having a cell phone, like, people did not have that when I was first born. Or maybe they did, but very few. But it was like, you had the big phones, and then they changed to the flip phones, and iPhones didn't exist for so long. iPhones came out, I think, in 2007, and that hasn't even been 10 years yet. So here we are having access to all of these brand new forms of communication, and it just truly is a blessing. YouTube is about to turn 10 years old, and that's just amazing too. It feels like it's been around forever, but the fact that people are even recording so many videos and commenting and doing all these different things is just like brand new to human society. And I suppose it's not just about being gentle with ourselves, but it's about being gentle with other people as we're all learning. I guess part of my fear is that we might be learning or being accepting of people being cruel to one another. Although that's clearly not anything new. We have so many forms of cruelty in human history to people and to animals and to the earth and all this. And I think that's actually part of the thing for me, is that I'm very sensitive to any forms of cruelty. My whole lifestyle is built around being as cruelless as possible. I don't want to be cruel to anybody, people or animals or the earth. And so it's like I'm always treading very lightly. And it's so hard for me to relate to people who are cruel in all these different forms that they can be. And for me, just negative comments and judgmental comments are cruel if they're not considering the person on the other end. And I guess it also ties in a lot to selfishness, is that when you write something or even just say something to someone in person that is not considerate of their feelings, it's a very selfish thing, because you're expressing something without considering how it makes the other person feel. And that's also really hard for me to accept. I work so hard to be as selfless as possible. It's almost virtually impossible to be selfless, because as just human nature, we have to make it about us in order to survive. But that's a whole other psychological conversation. But my point is that striving to be as kind to others as possible is so important to me. And I think that that's where I feel so much pain. But as I've also talked about in this channel too, I feel a lot of pain around judgment because I'm afraid that I'm not good enough. And that is just something that I'm constantly working on. So there's just so many triggers. And I guess I like sharing my experiences and what I'm learning about myself and reflecting on these things with you, because I believe that you can probably relate to this too. So how do we step back from these moments where we feel hurt by what other people say and look at it from a new perspective? I think one of the best things that we can do is just try not to take it in too much. Try to maintain inner peace and confidence, and just allow those moments to pass by as much as possible. To be grateful for forms of communication, however they may come. be grateful that we're just alive, period. I mean, we should be grateful for pain in any form because that means that we're alive. That means that we're experiencing life. That means that we're growing. And it's much easier to think about it that way in hindsight. The last piece that I would share with you, and something that really hit home with me during all of this, is a quote that I read from Steve Jobs. I actually didn't realize this is from Steve Jobs until I finished reading the quote. Maybe I shouldn't have told you that either, because I felt like it was such a great quote, and then it made it even better that it was Steve Jobs, because I think he was an incredible man. And here's what he said. Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. Don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your inner voice. And most important, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary. What powerful words, right? So he's reminding us how limited time is. And that's so true too. I mean, part of being grateful for being alive, right, is just saying, wow, like, this is the time I have, and this time is not always going to be fantastic, but ultimately every moment of life is fantastic because it's just so precious and limited. And whatever we're feeling is just part of life. You know, I especially felt this talking to my grandfather, and how he's maintained so much of his happiness and will to live just because he's so grateful to be alive. He's my last living grandfather. My grandmother passed away a few years ago, and he lives all by himself in a house, but he has just always had so much determination. He lived, he talked in the video a lot about living through the Great Depression. And it's like my grandfather talks about all these experiences in his life with so much positivity. And just, you can see it while he talks, just like he has a zest for life. And he's been there through all the different pain that he's experienced. So what Steve Jobs adds to that is not wasting your time living someone else's life, not being trapped by their dogma, living with the results of other people's thinking. I mean, that's so important. So for me, what I take from that is, I guess that's kind of its own form of reflection, is when somebody comes towards you with something that is against what you're feeling, it doesn't matter, because there's no point in living based on what they say if you disagree with it. If in your heart you want to think a certain way, if you believe a certain thing, it doesn't matter if somebody agrees with you or not. And that's so important for me, having all these feelings about not being good enough. Ultimately, I just have to decide that I'm good enough for myself and not be as influenced by other people's opinions of me. That's such a strong thing for all of us to remember. And as he said, don't let the noise of other people's opinions drown out your own inner voice. And most importantly, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. And, coming back around, for me, my heart aches at seeing all this judgment and cruelty that other people do for each other. But on the other hand, the fact that my heart aches from that is responsible for me creating the content that I create. And deep down, I know that what I'm doing is important, and I got to just keep following that, even if sometimes I feel like it's not being accepted or appreciated. You just got to keep going with it, because everything else is secondary to those feelings. If you do things simply because it feels right intuitively and within your heart, then that is the right choice. And I think it would be very odd if people intuitively felt like it was okay to be cruel or to do things that hurt other people. So for me, that means that they're not following their heart. And you got to have compassion for that, for people that are not fully in touch with themselves, that want to control other people and just kind of stomp all over things, I always come back around to this idea of how can I give them more compassion and love and not spend too much time on it either so that I can focus on myself and my precious time, my limited time. And maybe also remind them that their time might be better spent doing other things, right? So I think it's also a good reminder of leading by example. And when things really bother you, that usually means that you have something to say about them too. So there's always a way to transform challenging situations into something that's useful. And that's exactly what I'm doing in these videos. So, really the whole Uncensored channel is built on moments of pain and moments of struggle in my life and these lessons that I learn. And I find a way to transform them into positive messages and pass on the good word and inspire other people. So I'm grateful for the lessons ultimately. I hope that you check out that video with my grandfather. It resonated with a lot of people, which meant so much to me. I didn't really know what to expect with putting that up there, and it inspired me to do more interviews with him. He's such an incredible man, and it was just such a blessing to be able to share that with him and learn from him, and I hope you enjoy it. And I would love to hear your thoughts on the What a Vegan Eats channel video that I posted as well. So I'll link to those both. And of course, any thoughts that you'd like to share on the topic tonight, I would really, really love to hear. I value your opinion, your thoughts, your perspective on all of this. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. And thank you for your patience in me putting out the videos a lot later than I said it would be. I never said an exact time for Sunday, did I? It's just not technically Sunday anymore. So my cutoff time should be 12 a.m. Pacific time or 11:59 p.m., right? But whatever. I know you understand. I'm doing the best I can. I appreciate you. I love you. And I will see you next week, possibly on an actual Sunday. Okay, until then, bye.